Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you everyone for signing in to our session this evening. It is evening for us on a rainy 8 o'clock, but for Faris, he's up bright and early at 7 a.m. But just before us, he had an earlier meeting. That's how he rolls. So, so anyway, thank you everyone for coming in. Today we are speaking with Mohammed Faris, as I said. He's the founder of the Productive Muslim Company. He is the author of the best-selling book, Productive Muslim and Where Faith Meets Productivity. And today he will be speaking about Barakah Culture and how his new Barakah Journal helps us to achieve that. So the agenda for today will be like this. Mohammed Faris will do a short presentation. Then we go over some of the questions that you all have sent via the Google Forms. And then we'll open up questions to participants in this Zoom call. So I'd appreciate if the audience questions can be given at that point. Another thing is this session will be recorded. We will post it up as usual. All our other sessions are posted up like a week after this session, inshallah. It will be available on our website. So that all said, Bismillah. Mohammed Faris, welcome to Warda Books.
Thank you, man. I'm so happy. I feel so at peace when I see that bookstore. I feel it's like the one place on earth that I feel like so happy. Jazakallah khairan, everybody. Thank you so much for having me this morning. Oh, this evening.
Yeah, this evening. Yeah, so Mohammed Faris, maybe we just dive right in, and please let us know about your new initiative with the Barakah Journal and the Barakah Cards and how it fits into the jigsaw puzzle that is the Barakah culture. Bismillah.
All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalam ala Rasulillah wa ala ahli wa sahbihi ajma'een. Jazakumullah khair again. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm so honored to be here with you, all of you. And thank you everyone tuning in live. I know all of us are zoomed out by now. So whenever I see people show up live for Zoom call, I have full respect for you. So thank you so much. We appreciate you showing up for this call. So we started this whole journey of Barakah culture, understanding what Barakah. For those of you who know kind of the progression of my work, when we started as a blog in 2007, the blog was called Productive Muslim. And the intention of that blog was simply to answer the question, what is the link between faith and productivity? That was the kind of the question at that time. And the more I research into productivity, the more I research also into some of the understanding of productivity from a faith perspective, I kept coming back to this concept of barakah, the importance of barakah. Because honestly speaking, if you think about it, all of us, no matter how much work we put in, no matter how much time put into something, if there's no barakah in something, I mean, regardless of all the effort, all the productivity, all the time management stuff, the softwares, the life hacks, the tools, you know, if there's no barakah in something, it's almost like you feel it becomes aqim, right? It becomes almost like infertile. It doesn't produce, doesn't give you that barakah, that blessing that keeps on giving. Versus sometimes you put maybe not much effort, but Allah puts barakah into something and it lasts for so long. It lasts so many generations. It lasts for, beyond you. And that concept really fascinated me because it's a concept that we all kind of understand. I'm sure you heard your parents, your grandparents, right? Especially the old generation talk about a lot of barakah, but it's kind of hard to grasp your head around. It's like, what is barakah? Like, how do you explain barakah? And how you translate barakah into our I guess postmodern life, if you want to call it that way, and what it means from a practical reality. And that's been the mission that we've been on for the past several years, to understand this idea of barakah. Now, I have to tell you, it is hard to understand, but barakah is a divine concept. So we cannot really put our heads around it. All we can do is kind of called develop a web of meaning, right? There's certain strands of information that we're trying to, or certain clues that are given in the Quran, in the Hadith, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the sort of Islamic civilization history. You kind of get these stories, ideas, and you kind of put together a web of meaning. But I think it was very humbling until today to recognize that we can really not redefine barakah or get a head around barakah, because it is a matter of the divine, right? It is a gift Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts into something. When Allah puts barakah into something, if He puts barakah in your time, there's an expansion in your time. You do so much with so little. When there's barakah in your efforts, right? There's so much that you feel like you're putting effort, and Allah puts the result of the effort is far outweighs the sort of effort you've put in. The best example I've heard is, you probably experienced this before. You invite some guests over, and you cook for, like, say 5-10 people, expecting 5-10 people, and they just decide to call all their friends and family, right? So like 20 people show up at your house, and then you look at the food, you're thinking, it's not gonna be enough. But then, subhanallah, I'm sure you all experienced this. They come in, they eat, it takes seconds, and it's still left over. And you're thinking, how? How did that happen? Well, guess what? You've just experienced barakah. So try to understand that, explain that, and to make it real. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of us, we also live in a very, I guess, because of most of us have a secular upbringing. Even, unfortunately, sometimes with Islamic background, with Islamic learnings, we still have this mindset of, we can become very, very secular, our thinking, our worldview, that becomes very hard to explain something barakah, right? How do you, quote unquote, how do you measure barakah? How do you scientifically prove barakah, right? And the challenge is, barakah is very experiential. It's not something that it's not something that you can sort of attach logic to. It's a very experiential experience, very spiritual experiential experience. And our challenge, or at least our role, is to make people recognize, A, it is real. B, there are certain mindsets, values, and rituals that attract barakah as well as repel barakah. And C, that is something that you can actively work towards. It's not something that, sometimes we feel like, okay, I'll just sit back and kind of expect barakah to happen to me. It's something you can actively work towards. And of course, it is a matter of the divine, inshallah. So that's kind of the journey where we start off with. And that's when we start asking ourselves, well, first of all, how do you not make barakah just on a personal level, but how do you actually adopt it more, as a culture, right? Because I've started talking to organizations and teams. In fact, the call just before this call was with a Islamic bank in Indonesia, who said that a lot of their staff, they were like, well, can we adopt Barakah? Can it become part of our culture? And the CEO was like, there's no language for this, right? How do you adopt Barakah culture? How do you measure Barakah culture? How do you make it part of the modus operandi of the organization? And so it's fascinating that there is demand. People are seeking this what I call God-centered, hereafter-focused, purpose, impact-driven life, versus the hustle culture, which most of us, and especially when we're working, we're sort of fed, which is egocentric, worldly success driven, and really sort of very myopic, right? About kind of what's in it for me versus how can I please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's two worldviews. And when you define productivity from this Barakah culture worldview, it just opens up a whole different way of operating, a whole different way of being. And in terms of team culture, organizations, as well as individuals, it makes it, I'm not saying it makes things easier, but at least it gives you that, it puts that spiritual perspective on things, opens up a whole different perspective. I was talking to this IT company, and the CTO was very much, he's a CTO, technical guy, software engineer. He's like, God, like I go in, I just write code, right, every day long. How am I supposed to see barakah or act with barakah when I'm writing code 24/7? Like, that's my role in life. So I told him, which of the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala you love the most? He goes, I love the name Al-Jamil, the most beautiful. So, perfect. Is there such thing as beautiful code? And his eyes lit up. It's like, yeah, like, yeah, there's some. Although, can you approach and develop your software from the perspective of writing beautiful code, seeking Allah's acceptance? And the CEO, like a couple of weeks later, called me because I don't know what he did to this guy, but he's like, talk about performance is beyond even, because now he's literally seeing his work as an act of worship. Now, again, it's not about us falling into the trap of using or harnessing barakah to kind of boost more productivity in the hustle culture perspective. it's a different worldview, and us understand a different worldview, what it means to our personal and professional life, basically, inshallah. So whenever I come to explain Barakah, again, it was very hard. One of the challenges I had is sometimes I do presentations to a non-Muslim audience. I've done workshops in front of Salesforce, American Airlines, Google, American Express. And a lot of them are like, okay, they're like, well, they grew up with hustle culture. How to explain Barakah culture to a non-Muslim audience? Muslim audience might get it, might not. You'd be surprised. But a non-Muslim audience like, yeah, but what is this? What is Barakah stuff, man? What is Barakah stuff you're asking us? So I told them, think of perspective of gardening, right? And this is more the best metaphor that we've come up with gardening. The gardener, they put down their seed. So that seed is like your intention. Number two, you work hard, right? There's a process you follow. But number three, you never attach yourself to results. You cannot guarantee the fruits. There's so many factors that come in. So intention, action, and I think that those undefined, those unsort of controllable factors, that's when you need to recognize the some things that are beyond you. You need to recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who makes things happen or not. And this idea that we need to seek his permission and ask Allah for, make dua as part of our process. Just like you said, the good intentions, just like you work hard, you make dua and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the outcome. If the outcome is good, alhamdulillah, you be thankful. If the outcome is bad, you also be, you be patient. And again, think about it from a hustle coach perspective. When the outcome is good, what do you say? Aha, look at me. I was so smart. I'm amazing. I worked hard. This is me. That's exactly what Qarun said. Qarun said in the Quran, إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي, that I was given this wealth out of my own knowledge, my own skill. That's a very hustle culture approach to life. And when things go bad, when things don't go your way, what happens to hustle culture? That's when things like depression, anxiety, that's when you get upset. That's when you beat yourself up. You think, oh my God, I'm such a loser because I did not succeed when I thought I would succeed. Versus you persevere, you try again, you recognize this is not the time, and you come back with, you purify your intention, you work hard, and you make dua, you don't attach yourself to results. So this approach is so empowering. And it's also just, again, because today and a lot of write-ups, if you look up online, hustle culture, there's a lot of people are concerned about hustle culture and how it's impacting lives, impacting families, impacting society as well at large, and how we need Barakah culture, how we can make Barakah culture reality. So the challenge was like, okay, this Barakah culture is interesting. How do you actually adopt it? How do you actually live it? And I realized that when it comes to Barakah culture, it starts off with something simple, which is our daily planning and weekly planning. When we start our day, how do we plan? Normally, we set a to-do, we set deadlines, and then we just sort of try and squeeze out as much as possible from our day. And that's it. And then we just sort of repeat that over time. But unfortunately, that is a very hustle culture approach to working. What I wanted to experiment, at least try out, this is maybe a large experiment, and that is to say, well, how can we adopt Barakah culture in our daily planning? And I said, well, Barakah culture is very intentions-driven culture. It's all about setting those intentions. And it's not about setting good intentions or wishful thinking. When you say setting intention, I mean you're being sincere and you really want this to happen. So you set your intention, and then number two, you ask permission, right? You ask permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why there's a section daily plan, like what dua will you make today? What istikhara will you make today? And then at the end of the day, you reflect back on how well you worked on that intention and how much can you, and also kind of like what Allah has opened the doors for you or not that day. And that intention different approach suddenly makes our to-dos into our intentions list and makes us realize that there is, it's almost like I started being less stressed, I'll be honest. Ever since I had this intentions-driven way, I became less stressed. These were like, oh my God, I got 15 things on my to-do list. If I don't get it done, I feel so upset. Versus, these are my intentions. This is what I dua for. And if Allah opens the door for it and I work hard on it, if Allah opens the door, alhamdulillah. If Allah doesn't open the door, alhamdulillah. I revisit my intention and I work on it tomorrow. And it just became a much more, I would say easier, but just much more empowering and more spiritual way of approaching my daily and weekly planning, and became less of that to-dos and projects and deadlines and the hustle culture approach, and also became much more spiritual. I'm recognizing my role as a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My role is to set intentions, to put in the effort, just like the gardener, but I can never guarantee the fruits. There's a verse in the Quran that I love, which is Surah Al-Waqi'ah, Allah subhanahu says in the Quran, أَفَرَأَيْتُمْ مَا تَحْرُثُونَ أَأَنْتُمْ تَزْرَعُونَ أَمْ نَحْنُ الزَّارِعُونَ. Do you see that seed which you sow? Is it you who makes it grow, or are we the grower, right? A lot of us, when we work hard, think, yes, we are the ones who are making it grow. But really, is it you who makes it grow? It's a tough question. And hustle culture makes us think that, yes, you are the one who makes it sow. If you don't sow your own seed, if you don't grow your own, like you'll be a failure versus, yes, set the seed. You sow, put the seed, but recognize who's the ultimate provider and recognize that he can provide you from where you don't expect. And that's the barakah factor that we all seek, inshallah. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to open the floor for any questions, and then inshallah we'll take it from there, inshallah. Bismillah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Mohammed Faris. It's always refreshing to hear you speak. Always refreshing. I mean, I've known you for a few years, and I've seen you grapple with this concept of barakah from way back in the beginning, when this was in its germinal form. And now that I see the Barakah Journal and even the cards, I'm quite amazed at how developed this idea of the Barakah mindset has become or has matured. So my question is, how did you go about systematizing this concept? Barakah to us, as you said, feels random, and it feels that how am I going to plan for this, let alone something that I can access systematically. So, but you have systematized it now. So I'm just wondering, because I saw it at the beginning, and now I'm seeing the product. I didn't see the middle. So maybe you could tell us how that happened.
That's Barak. No, it is. Again, this is where it comes down. I cannot pinpoint to a specific time. I feel like I said, you set the intention, so you plant the seeds, and then things start growing, right? Even this whole idea of barakah, it was an event that I was invited to out of the blue, talk about barakah, that kind of sparked the interest to go really deeper into this. So I wish I have a better answer, but I'll be honest with you, it's more like you ask questions, you set the seed, set the intention, you like trying to grapple this understanding, you look at different framework, experiment a lot. And the one thing I'd say about systemizing, that again, this is, I will say it's, I wouldn't be careful. It's not about me, it's not me saying, okay, I can access Barakah on demand, right? It's not like, hey, I can order Amazon Prime. Boom, let's get some Barakah here. It is about being open and being in a better position to receive that barakah, right? I feel like, again, there's no guarantee that you'd use Barakah Journal, adopt all this stuff, and you'll get barakah. Of course, we are promised, barakah when it comes to, if you adopt certain mindset, vows, and rituals, but there's no guarantee, because at the end it comes down to sincerity, and also comes down to, it's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Barakah is in the end a gift. Also, you might not see the barakah in your own lifetime. I will share the story of, there's a company, as a fried chicken restaurant in Saudi Arabia that loved to sell fried, that the founder used to donate 1 riyal in charity for every fried chicken he sold, right? Now you might think, okay, that's fine. The only issue is that restaurant was losing money for the first 2 years of his business. So the founder started his restaurant. He's giving 1 riyal in charity for every fried chicken sold, and he was losing money. Now, think about it. If someone else like, where's the barakah, right? The guy's losing money. And he passed away 2 years later so he had cancer, he passed away. Now that company, 20 years on, it is one of the largest fried chicken companies in the Middle East. It beats KFC any day, any time. There's so much, the amount of good work that his children, like in terms of, community support, doing, is selling fried chicken. Now, for me, when I looked at that, like, subhanAllah, this person never saw that barakah in his life, right? But he kept at it. He did continue the rituals, for example, giving charity, knowing that this barakah, even though he did not say his life, but the barakah came later on. So sometimes, and this is where it's hard to grapple, where it's not about accessing barakah on demand. And again, the hustle culture mindset of saying, oh yeah, I deserve this, a sense of entitlement. It's a sense of, I'm a slave, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I seek Allah's barakah. Whether I see results or not, doesn't matter. I know that I'm doing the right things. So so back to your question, I guess it's more like setting the intentions, putting the effort, figure things out, and just seeing what comes up. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opening doors from where I did not personally expect. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I suppose it is a degree of faith in this as well. Because as your fried chicken example is, he cannot see, or he did not see the results, but he had faith in this worldview, or in this tawheed. So the results came.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Exactly. It takes it takes a lot of faith because, and again, we are trained, right? If you don't see results, you don't see, then it's like, well, I'm not gonna put in effort, right? What does it mean? Why should I adopt these things at my own personal sacrifice, right? And this is all Barakah culture concepts. It tells you to, like, sometimes you need to put in extra effort, even if you don't see results, and being okay with that because you're doing the right thing, because you're doing things that is aligned with your role in life, your purpose in life, and with the sort of the mindsets, vows, and rituals that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us in the Quran and in the prophetic tradition.
And this is where I feel that it's quite valuable. This when you speak about Barakah culture, because a lot of us modern Muslims, we have this compartmentalization. We have our to-do list where we strive and we go nuts, and then 5 minutes later we have to pray and then come back to whatever we're doing. So there's this disconnect between what we're doing and what our faith tells us to do and what our worldview should be. So this I see it as a way to is a corrective movement where we are trying to align our work with what um, we are supposed to be doing every single day, because work is the thing that really shapes us, because we do it all our waking hours. So if that is not aligned with Allah and with the Prophet's Sunnah, we're in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great putting it alignment, and like I said, we spend, gosh, 8, 9, 10 hours at work, and imagine starting your day with an intention list, like, it's my intention of today, and you pray istikhara, pray dua for that day, and then you go about just like a gardener, right, doing your hard work, sweating it out, working hard, but knowing this is rooted in intention. And at the end of the day, you look back and you reflect back and you're thankful. Whatever Allah has given you, say alhamdulillah. Whatever He's not given you, say alhamdulillah. What a I mean, I found, again, just for me, just trying myself, I find much more calming and less stressful and less disappointing, to be honest with you, sometimes, because sometimes we have all this grand to-do list, right? We have a mass to-do list and we get like so obsessed. And again, I want to be very clear. This is not an excuse. People think, oh, it's Barakah culture, is sit back, relax. It's a lazy culture. It's an excuse to not work hard, to not take responsibility. No, it is, I feel like it's actually more responsible because when you set the intention is, as Imam Ghazali says, is a heartfelt desire. So it's like, this is what I really want. It's my niyyah. And sometimes you might look at to-do lists and look at intention, and they're totally different, because your to-do list is saying something, but your intention is totally, it's not in your intention today. So when you set intention, it's a very heartfelt desire, and you're being determined. And the beautiful thing, of course, you're being rewarded for that intention. The more sincere it is, the more it's more up the hierarchy of intentions, as I mentioned in the journal itself, basically.
Yeah, you're right. When I first started the journals, my intentions looked a lot like my to-do list. So then I realized that, wait, I'm doing this wrong. So,
Yes, it's hard. It takes a
yeah,
few weeks to get used to the idea of, my intention is not my to-do
yeah.
list. And that's what I recommend people to do is, if just to don't use it as a daily, as a typical daily planner, right? You can have your calendar, you can have your, put your stuff you got to do, but you really sit down, what's my intention for today? And you'd be surprised at how much what your intention comes up, and how aligned or not aligned with the to-do list is.
Okay, let's zoom in on the journal itself. So I will be the first to admit that I was skeptical at the beginning of this idea of a very structured journal, like the Barakah Journal, because my own journaling experience has always been unstructured, start with the free page and just write. But having used this journal for a few weeks, I see the benefit of imposing an external structure. The structure itself nudges you along and reinforces your core messages about the Barakah mindset and culture, values, mindsets, and rituals. So my question is this: how did you balance between providing structure on one hand and providing this flexibility on the other?
Good question. I think I borrowed from the coaching world. So in the coaching world, they tell you ask questions and don't give directions, right? Which is can be very frustrating for coaching clients because they're like, just tell what to do, right? And I'm like, no, I'm just going to ask you a good question. So, and that I found is it's much more empowering when you ask questions. And for example, what's your intention today? It's like, God, Lee's like, okay, you just tell me what your intention. No, what is your intention today? Okay, what would you pray istikhara for today? You know, what are your 5 most important intentions? The only thing that we put a structured through was asking like, you know, put 5 intentions versus 7 intentions, and that was more mainly for practical reasons, how much you can fit in the page. But if I were to rewrite it, maybe you just remove that and say just what's your intentions for today, or how many intentions for the week you have. So yeah, I think that was the first thing, kind of borrowing from the coaching world and getting people to, you know, asking questions and then letting people sit with that question and then see where they go with that. That's one. The second thing was, like I said, I'm hoping this, like I said, it is a bit of a practice. Like I said, it takes time, and it is a bit of practice to shift from years of doing to-dos and calendars and projects and tasks and the way we've been trained to organize our lives to thinking it this way. It's not very intuitive. It does take time, but I'm hoping that if you commit to the process, at least for a couple of weeks, you'll start seeing and adopting it and realize, okay, this is a way of thinking, and that takes time. Hence, the structure is more like to give you the rail guards to get used to this way of thinking. And I'm hoping that you don't need the Barakah Journal for life. I'm hoping that you after 6 months of using journaling, I think, okay, I feel like I get it, to kind of apply it more naturally to my daily unstructured journaling or my calendar system. But that rail guards has helped to get you started. And I feel it's almost like physical therapy, right? You need to kind of reinforce it a few times before it gets there. So yes, it's coaching approach versus putting some rail guards to shift your way of thinking, way of adopting it.
Thanks for that response. Yes, definitely it takes a bit of adjustment. It takes a bit of feeling a way through it, and yeah, is definitely beneficial. Having done it for about 2 to 3 weeks, 3 weeks. Coming to this subject of weeks, I I noticed that the daily reflections are for 5 days, and then the weekly reflections. I don't know whether you're trying to start a revolution where people only work for 5 weeks, but there must be something to it. So,
all right. So I'll give you the practical answer, and I'll give you the philosophical answer. Right? The practical answer is if we put 7 daily planning pages versus 5-day pages, the journal will just expand in thickness. And I had a very strict direction, my designer, that I wanted a certain thickness. I'm like, if it's thicker than that, it's too big, it's too bulky. No one's going to carry it around. We don't want it that thick. So that was the practical reasons. The philosophical reason is, again, this is from experimenting as well. I've noticed a couple of times. Number one, that a lot of us, we don't, yeah, kind of 5 days setting intentions, and then 2 days where, you know, Dr. Bill Rothman, and this is where I got this idea from, talks about this weekend experiment called experience Ibn al-Waqt, right? Be the son of time, where you go out there and you just you don't set out an intention for the day. You just see what Allah does to you that day, right? And it's a great experiment of kind of letting go of control, because we are control freaks and control seekers. And sometimes having that a day or two in the week where you say, I'm just not going to set any intention. My intention, of course, just be Abdullah Ta'ala and see what Allah does to me today. It's actually quite liberating. So it's kind of experiencing Ibn al-Waqt and being that son of time. So this is something Dr. Abdullah Rothman talks a lot about. He does an advanced masterclass with us, and he teaches this about, he calls a weekend experiment, where you go to a random part of town and just walk around and just see what Allah does to you, so to speak. And kind of being really the son of the moment, versus always, you know, where you always think about where you're going to head next, or think about where you were before. You always just being in that moment. So having those 2 pages kind of like gives you that data. Well, what will I do today? Be the son of moment. So that's the kind of philosophical response to that. And personally, again, also another practical reasons I've noticed that we don't want to also waste pages. A lot of people don't actually keep up for 7 days a week. So we'll know there'll always be some wasted pages. So instead of that, if you miss a day or 2, you can still complete a week without it completely having like many empty daily planning pages as well. That's another practical reasons. But those are some of the I know I should have explained it more in the journal, but there you go.
Yeah, thanks. Because that was the first thing that occurred to me. But yeah, you're right. We do miss some days, and there are some days that, as Abdullah Rothman says, that you want to just freewheel and see how things go, because you don't want to be on 24/7, even if
And structured.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, so you have a
Found a
way
lot of
of,
the creative ideas, a lot of creative ideas, a lot of inspiration come on those days where you let go, right?
right.
I mean, again, we do need some level of planning and structure, but sometimes you just need to let go. And subhanAllah, things just open up like, wow, like never, this would not have happened if I had like a very set intentions for the day or since set plan for the day, basically.
They, so the next question is related to that, or is an extension to that. This is to do with the Barakah experiments. Um, so I've been trying some of the experiments out, and I get the feeling that you as an author were being a bit sneaky. That you were trying to, instead of telling people these are the things you should do, you're like telling people, hey, why don't you try this for a day or two and see what works out. So, and it turns out that the experiments are nice, because you find that it is good for you, and then without you knowing it, you suddenly have 4 or 5 new habits that you never knew you would acquire. So yeah. So was that
I like
was
that sneaky.
yeah, so what was the thinking behind the Barakah experiments? Because I think that's where the secret sauce is.
Yeah, again, the audience I'm dealing with, I've honestly, again, this kind of post-modern society with professional Muslims where they're very skeptical. They're like, what's Barakah stuff, man? Very skeptical. And me having to deal with that audience for so long that I'm almost like, all right, like, okay, this is again the coaching style. Let's give you a little nudge. Try an experiment. The worst thing you can stop the experiment. If it doesn't work, hey, you can drop it. And a lot of people, like I said, alhamdulillah, they experiment, they realize, oh wow, like this stuff works and this is amazing. And they really see the benefit of it. So it's more about hopefully getting people, encouraging people to experience Barakah, because once you experience it, then everything falls into place. If you don't experience it, or if it does not click for you, then this becomes some kind of woo-foo stuff going on here. So that's what the idea is. And each of these experiments were kind of backed by either a verse of the Quran or a hadith or a life experience of people who've experienced Barakah and shared their Barakah stories and wanted to be with people like try it. That's the worst thing can happen is, okay, it doesn't work for you, alhamdulillah, try something else and see where it goes from there.
Full disclosure, my first Barakah experiment was afternoon naps.
Brilliant. That's the best. And you can say, hey, it's one of my Barakah experiments. You can tell your team, like, it's my nap. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. We also have the questions or responses from the Google form. We sent this out a week ago, and first I'll just read out what we got from the poll. I asked in the poll, do you practice any form of daily journaling, to the audience? And 50% said no, but they want to learn. 21% said yes, consistently. So 21% consistently journal. And 17% say yes, but not consistently. So it's about half and half. The people who don't journal and people who journal, whether it's consistent or non-consistent. And 13% say they don't journal at all. But the last question we asked is, are you interested in learning about productivity practices that are grounded in the Islamic tradition? We got 100% saying yes. So this is quite an interesting thing where people recognize that what you are doing is valuable. Alhamdulillah. So what do you think of those figures? Is it the same way?
Yeah, the consistency, the journal, again, it depends on, okay, put it. The journaling world is so huge right now. And we've kind of split it up. There's like a gratitude journal, there's a reflective journal, there's this journal, there's that journal. So I don't blame people like thinking, one of the people's like, oh, it's one of the comments I got like, oh, not another journal. I'm tired of journals, right? And so much journal. And all again, comes back to intention. For example, if I'm recognizing that I'm having an issue with gratitude, then I would actually recommend, you know what, to help me practice gratitude, I'll get a gratitude journal and start and hold those guardrails to help me. I know, for example, you featured the Gym Life Journal, a beautiful journal as well. That really encourages gratitude, and it's a beautiful piece of work as well. So it depends on where you are in life and what journal, what tool. These are all tools, right? And all of the authors and amazing people working on these tools, they're giving you a tools, and it's up to you how you use that tool. So where you see yourself, if you feel like, you know what, I feel like I'm struggling with being intention setting with Barakah, then maybe something Barakah can help. If you know I'm struggling with gratitude, developing that, because unless it's never driven by need, they just become like the latest fad. I mean, I would say please don't use Barakah Journal if you just don't feel you don't feel it for now, right? If you feel like, okay, it's interesting, but not for me at this moment in time. Maybe for you, it's just a free writing journal. I still carry my Moleskine where I just free writing journals. That's fine. You can sort of have that whatever works for you. Now, of course, there's been a lot of great research about simply putting pen to paper, right, and just writing ideas, whether writing your intentions, your to-dos, your understanding what's going on, you're putting meaning to your day. There's a lot of benefit to that as well. So I would say pick up a journaling practice, but make sure the journaling practice is linked to where you are in life and what stage you are in life. And where we are, and don't feel guilty, right? Don't beat yourself up too hard if you don't journal every day. Like everyone, all these gurus are telling you should journal every day. It's a tool. You use that tool, just like you take a bath, just like you exercise. It helps you. It's for your own mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. Practice it and develop it, and over time, inshallah ta'ala, it become part of you. And secondly, again, build the what I normally found it habit stack it. For example, for me, my Barakah journal, this is the first thing when I walk into my office. Before I turn on my computer, I'll do my Barakah journal planning for the day. So that's kind of like it's already almost like it's linked to an activity. So that way I'm not, it's not like freewheel, like I don't know when I'm going to do it. So kind of make it almost have a sacred time where this is when you can dedicate for the journaling, and shouldn't take too long, inshallah.
I just want to pick up on what you said earlier about journaling or gratitude journaling or barakah journaling depends on where you are. And you talk a lot about this. You talk about the seasons of your life. So I thought that was very important concept, this seasons of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all of us got different seasons, and there's different seasons, spiritual seasons. There's different life seasons you go through, life event seasons. Birth, death. Going through divorce, marriage, new job, new country. These are all COVID. Gosh, I talk about the season, right? There's so many different seasons we go through, but also on spiritual level, right? There's certain different seasons. Some seasons you are elevating, and this is what the scholars of spiritual path talk about, right? Different maqamat and halat, the different seasons you are in. Somebody find yourself running with things, and somebody find yourself just really struggling and trying to kind of like just holding on. So I feel like recognizing those seasons and not being too hard. We're not machines. This is one thing that I help try to do with Barakah culture is very natural. Just like with gardening, it aligns with the seasons of your life. Just like we have winter, summer, fall, and spring. We go through different seasons in life, and some seasons are more fruitful, some seasons are not so fruitful. Recognizing that and living with your season is much more natural than this machine-like life of me being the same, being consistent. Again, the idea of consistency, I feel, is completely misunderstood. Yes, the Prophet said that the most best of deeds are those that are consistent, even if they're small. But the Arabic word is adwamuhu. Adwamuhu means lasting. That something that's lasting means that, okay, it's part of you, but does not mean every single day, no matter what, because you're a machine. No, you're not a machine. You go ups and downs. Even Prophet Muhammad himself, Ajul would say that some days I saw him, for example, wake up the whole night and pray. And some days I wake up and ask, did he actually get up and pray today? Right? This seasonality based on where he was, based on his life activities. He was in a battle, not in a battle. All these things play up. So we as human beings to recognize that we have seasons. We need to live according to seasons, and and align ourselves to those seasons. Otherwise, it can get very frustrating if you try to kind of force a summer fruit to come in the winter, if you know what I mean, basically.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. The garden metaphor comes in and it gels in with seasonality. You need the autumn, you need the winter for you to have spring. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So just to go back to the questions that people asked in advance, I've grouped them. Um, I grouped the questions. So the first group is about productivity. So there's a question is, what is the first thing a beginner should do to be a productive Muslim?
Yeah, set the intention, right? You gotta start. Again, I cannot start with anything that every hadith book you read, right? The first hadith is إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, action by intentions. And I never really understood the power of intention until I started doing research about it. Then I realized my mind was blown away. We underestimate intention, or we just curse to go, okay, I set my intention, Bismillah, I'm going to do this. But when you really understand intention, it is a driving force, right? I could be smiling at you, right, with intention that I love you and I respect you, or smiling at you, being with some menace in my heart, right? It all comes down to intentions. Like, what is the intention? And the fact it is this secret between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? No one knows intentions. No one knows intentions. It makes it even more powerful. So set your intention and think, what's my intention of being productive, right? Why am I trying to be productive? Is it simply, I put those levels of intentions, is it simply for financial worldly gain? I'm being productive so that I can work harder, get promoted, get a better job. Is it simply for honor, reputation, fame? So, mashallah, so and so is so productive. Is it just for the feel good factor? I feel good when I'm productive. Or if you're going to go above that to what I call the Barakah Culture sort of paradigm, where it's about spiritual contentment. You do if you feel good spiritually, right? It's not about the worldly things anymore. Or it's about the hereafter. It's more about the akhirah. Or ultimately, which we need to work towards, and that is to purely do things for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. I know that that sounds like a big jump for a lot of us, but again, one of the intentions of Barakah Journal is to kind of help us cultivate that and ask that question: how can I please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala today in my daily planning, in my weekly planning? I put that quote with Ibn Ata'illah, praiseworthy planning is planning around God, planning always about how your relationship with Allah Ta'ala. Blameworthy planning is all about the nafs, its own desires and this world. So I think it's orienting ourselves, and it starts with intention. So start with intention and make sure the intention is for at least for the highest level we can get up to on a spiritual plane, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for that reminder about intention. The next question is a nice one. How do you have time for everything?
I don't. I don't. I don't. I look at I know, I love that, the daily routine of Prophet ﷺ, right? We
Oh,
did this,
mashallah. Yes, yes.
that whole circular thing.
Yeah.
And that, when I look at that routine, for those who have not seen it, if you can just Google the daily routine of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, you'll see an infographic that shows his typical day. And when I look at that for me, something that really stands out is, number one, how relaxed he was despite the responsibilities he had, and how present he was with his family, his companions, in his prayers, that he gave each one their due right? Muhammad had a large family, he had a lot of companions who wanted his attention, and we don't hear this complaint of saying, "Ya Rasulullah, you're not giving me enough time. You're too busy for me." You just don't hear it in this. Like, again, maybe I've not come across. Maybe there is. I've not come across it where one of the wives or the children say, "Oh, you don't give me enough time," or "You're always busy," right? Just like my wife complains about me, at least. So it's like, So what is it about? And I realized it's him being present. He was there, right? And also he had this in the productivity world, they talk about having a mind like water. Say this is the ultimate productivity, where you're so present and so quote unquote in control that even if something pops up that messes up your day, you can rearrange quickly and you come back to a calmness in that mind like water. And I felt like Muhammad ﷺ had that ability to, where he was purposeful for his day. He was getting things done, where he was moving things forward, but at the same time, he was there, he was present. And I'm hoping that by itself is ultimate productivity. So it's aspirational. I'm gonna say you'll have time for everything, but recognizing. And the second thing is to prioritize the things that you feel I hate to say this word, but we tend to say without saying it, waste my time. Like, should I read Quran or should I get started my day, right? Okay, if I read Quran, that's like 30 minutes of Quran, but yeah, but I've got to start my day early. So we'll skip the Quran because in our mind, we think it's, no, we don't say it, but we think it's a waste of time, even though our actions say it. And then we start doing our work and then barakah is removed from that day. Suddenly that thing which took 3 hours takes about 6 hours versus we actually prioritize reading the Quran, prioritize praying on time, prioritize sending salawat, prioritize doing those things that attract barakah. And then subhanAllah, like the stuff that's supposed to take like a week or two gets done in 3 days. Stuff that's supposed to take 5 hours gets done in 1 or 2 hours. And that is barakah. So talk about filling everything in, it comes down again, comes down to barakah. You orienting your life. Even Hassan Basri says that being late for prayer, if you're always late for prayer, Allah will make things late in your life. I mean, that just blew my mind. You forget praying on time. That's like praying. Okay, let's say you pray, but you're just being late for prayer consistently. He's saying Allah will delay things in your life. So like, it's like, and us having that spiritual intelligence to see that link. I feel like that is what's missing. I feel like I'm hoping with the Barakah Journal, we can start develop the spiritual intelligence saying, I recognize these spiritual factors, not just the nice things I can do on myself when I'm free, but the literally is how I need to orient my life in order to fit everything to do in my daily life. And again, you see the amazing work of the scholars and how much stuff they got done, how much work they books they wrote. It's mind-blowing, just mind-blowing. But it comes down to what? It comes down, they oriented their life towards, and they put in the hard work, and Allah puts barakah, again, exponentially giving that energy, focus, and time beyond expectation, basically.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that reminder. The next set of questions is generally about journaling, and basically they revolve around this idea of how do I journal regularly and how do I fit time to journal again? How do I instill the habit of journaling?
So I recommend, again, like I mentioned earlier, attach it to something. So I'll normally attach it to an anchor. So the anchor could be, like, example for me, is when I walk into my office, and Barakah Journal is right here. That's when I start the Barakah Journal. Or attach it to a specific, let's say, make sure that the journal is where near the anchor. Like example for me, office. Someone else can be after prayer, maybe on next to their prayer area, they can have the Barakah Journal next to them. So think of an anchor, a trigger, something that anchors this habit, a place and a time that you say this is the journaling time, and you attach the time and you attach the habit to it. Secondly, make it very small. Don't I know, for example, it might get overwhelming with the Barakah Journal. Like I said, when we first get started, there's a lot to think about, there's a whole way of thinking. And get that. That's why I feel like the learning curve is huge and it might take a while. Start small, right? So maybe you wake up one day and you write one intention. That's it. Don't write 5, write one intention and one dua you'll do for the day. That's it. That's great. That gets you started, right? So start small, make it concise. And then finally just, see the benefit, right? Make almost like give yourself the I guess the dopamine fix if you want to, or just the reflection that this is actually useful for me. It's actually helpful for me. It's not like, oh my God, it's a chore. I got to do this journaling stuff. I got this expensive journal and now I have to actually use it. And it becomes this like annoying thing I got to do. Like, no, just set your intention and see the benefit of it. Like, oh, subhanAllah, actually, this actually helped me. One thing I like to do, I actually like to go back and sort of go back to my previous journals, previous intentions, and look back and say, subhanAllah, these intentions I've set, like say 2-3 weeks ago, and Allah, made it happen. So just, it feels more, it feels just beautiful just to be able to track your intentions, right, over time and see that over, subhanAllah, the last 3 weeks, these intentions set myself, and these are something Allah has opened the doors for, which I didn't even expect. So it comes rewarding, and that reward reinforces the habit, makes me want to stick to this habit, not let go of this habit, inshallah. So have an anchor, a time and place. Make it small, make it easy. Don't make it too hard for yourself, especially if you're starting off. And then just try to reinforce the habit, but make it say this is something positive. You wanna keep going at it, inshallah.
Yeah, but perhaps the biggest experiment, the Barakah experiment, is the journal itself.
Yes.
That you're starting or embarking on the journal. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
and say it's good and see the experiment. That's my other sneaky way. This is experiment. Try it. What's the worst that can happen? Basically, try it there.
Then the next set of questions is maybe more of the general advice or more like coaching type questions that you might have gotten. So this question is, what is your favorite bit of advice to live by?
You know it, man. You should be able to quote me by now. If let me test my friendship with you. What is the advice I normally share at every single talk that I give?
Yeah.
Let me see.
Set the intention.
Do you know? There we go. Have sincere intentions and work hard. All right, that's the one I will say. Have sincere intentions and work hard. That's my advice. And alhamdulillah, it's been a barakah of that intention that we lived off for years, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So the next question is a bit of a tangent, but might be worthwhile asking. Is there's someone who asked the question is how to free yourself from addiction?
Got it. Yeah, I mean, the challenge, I mean, of course, not to go into the mental health aspect, but of course, there are a lot of amazing work done on the mental health aspect of addiction and how to treat addiction from a mental health perspective. And I would recommend, highly recommend, to seek a professional when it comes to addictions. But also starting to, again, sometimes you need to reinforce certain habits. Just like a bad habit gets reinforced, a good habit also gets reinforced. And sometimes it could be something as simple as trying to replace that bad habit with, again, something small. There's a famous example used where there's a guy who used to come back from work and just sits in front of the couch and just watches 5 hours ESPN, right? ESPN is a sports channel in the US. And 5 hours ESPN is eating bag of chips, right? Just like for 5 hours. So of course he gained weight. And then he's trying to think, well, he realized it's not very healthy way of doing things, but he loves his 5 hours of TV time. He loves 5 hours ESPN. Didn't want to change that. So literally what he did was he changed a bag of chips to a bag of salad. So instead of crunching on a bag of chips, he's crunching a bag of salad. You end up losing weight over time. So sometimes it's kind of finding what's the smallest commitment. I always believe in this idea, the smaller the change, the longer it lasts. Sometimes, again, if you're not ready there yet, spiritually, mentally, to go cold turkey in addiction, say, how can I make small changes to kind of at least wean myself off, to kind of get the nafs off it, and to get to a point where the nafs says, you know what, I'm not interested in this anymore. And it's a process. It's a process. And really clinging on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you, right? The idea, that's why إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. You recognize that you're his servant, you need to worship him, but you also need his help. And addictions are very, very tough, where there's a physiological reasons that just make it very hard for you to let go of addictions. So kind of like really asking for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help and making that intention and being sincere about it to your last breath. It even takes you years to get over the addiction. Don't give up. To your last breath, keep at it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open the doors for you. So take the means, set the intention, take the means, whether it's practical things like making small changes to your daily routine and habits so that you don't fall for those addictions, or seeking professional help to help you. And of course, the dua part is always is essential to help you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of relieve you from the shackles of the addiction, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. I'll now go over the questions that are on the chat. Someone was asking, basically, basically, I find it tiring to do this intention planning and then planning my daily to-dos, which deters me from doing them in the first place. What's your advice? You may already touch on.
It's effort. Again, I won't lie to you that it takes a bit of practice. And just like a workout in the gym, right? And you won't see the benefit only after you practice it. There's a bit of a catch-22. It's like you're trying to work out a muscle, right? Our intentions muscle is so weak that kind of doing this takes a lot of effort, especially a lot of heart effort, and it kind of builds this heart muscle to set intentions. What's my intention? Again, sometimes you look, oh my God, I don't care. I just want to get my things done, right? You just want to get my to-do list. I don't sit down and think what my intention today is. But that's the whole point. It's a practice. And you put in that little bit of effort, and then you'll see the barakah of that result, inshallah. So set the intentions and make it small. If it's too much to do like 5 intentions, I put it every day. Put one intention. What's my number one intention? Hey, it could be something. It doesn't have to be to do. It could be to be. Like I said, for example, My intention is to be more present with my children. That's my intention for today, for example. My intention is to show up and be more graceful or more present with my clients, for example. That's your intention. And then you go about your day doing all the other stuff, and you come back at the end of the day, was I more present today or not? So just don't make it too hard for yourself. Make it very, very simple, inshallah. So set intentions, and then it is a practice. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but you'll see inshallah the benefit that comes after several days of doing this and realizing, oh, subhanAllah, this actually helped me. And the part that I actually love the most is the part to ask, what dua or istikhara people make today? And again, that has become part of my day now, where, okay, I set my intentions. I say, this is the dua I'll make for today, or this is istikhara prayer I'll make for today. And it kind of helps with decision making. With we go through a lot of stuff in our lives that just makes it easier to kind of be intentional, even about your du'as, which, sometimes we can get very robotic about it after time.
There's another question by Lily Chung, and this is perhaps the season related question. She asks, what if you find your intentions are the same every day, especially for people who are retired? What benefit is your journal for people like this?
Yeah, I love that question.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm trying to think this. I guess there's two ways to look at it. One is, if you notice that your intentions have not changed, I'll ask you, are you challenging yourself enough? Are you setting higher intentions? One concept that I teach called having a high himma intention. A high himma intention is a high aspiration intention, something that will kind of gets you out of your comfort zone. Because sometimes we tend to be, we want to stay within our comfort zone. We don't want to be push ourselves a bit hard. So I would say, can you put an intention that makes it a little bit uncomfortable, right? Sometimes you just can experiment. You can set an intention that's a bit uncomfortable, that kind of pushes you out of your comfort zone. Maybe the intention today is to share, to share Barakah experiment with my children, right? Or to share Barakah with my neighbor, which may be uncomfortable, which gets you out of comfort zone. You think, oh God, I'm not sure why, but someone puts a fire under you. So if you see the intention the same for a few days, I would recommend to kind of experiment and say, can I set a higher intention? And again, the intention, like I said, should be like a heartfelt desire, meaning that it should feel like almost like your heart really leans towards it. And it means that, especially when you go through different seasons of life, you'll be surprised. Like there'll be something there that you want to set intention for. For example, maybe the situation happened at work or with your family or with your children. You're like, my intention is to be the reason why this issue gets resolved. My intention is to, be more present and support this way forward, inshallah. So I hope that kind of helps. So I feel like try to set yourself a bit of high intention and try to update intention so you don't get stagnant, inshallah, if that makes sense.
Thank you for that. There's another question by Felia. She's asking, should intention be purpose-driven?
Yeah, so I put it in the description journal, like the hierarchy of intentions, and I mentioned that there are different levels of intentions, right? You can do intention could be something for purely financial worldly gain. Now, I have to be clear. Other than acts of worship, they have to be sincere for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the kind of the one we must make sure is for sincere for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, acts of worship like salah and fasting, hajj, right? We make sure that those are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For permissible acts, meaning eating, drinking, sleeping, working, doing any permissible act, technically speaking, you can go about them and just do them without any intention. And the only thing is, of course, you miss out on the reward for those intentions. For example, you eat just for the sake of eating, that's fine. But if you eat for the sake of getting more energy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you get more intention, you get more reward for that. So the purpose-driven part comes in if it's almost like it elevates your daily experiences. It elevates your to-do list. It elevates your typical working day where, what is my intention for today? Right? I'm starting my day, inshallah. What's my need for today? So you kind of completely elevates it. And the higher up you can go with the higher intention, where you start doing things for spiritual contentment, for gaining paradise, or purely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake, that's when you kind of, I feel like that's when you kind of really unlock the barakah, inshallah. You attract the barakah in your life because you are now operating on a different plane, basically, because you're now thinking of that perspective and you consciously, intentionally think of that perspective. So yes, I'd say it's purpose-driven perspective of you elevating, upgrading your intention to the highest level and not being and not just being consumed by kind of the day-to-day kind of responsibility and stuff that just sometimes distract us from ultimate purpose as well, inshallah.
Okay, intention. That's the key. Thank you.
That's the key. I know it sounds like a broken record, but that's exactly what it is.
Khairul is asking an interesting question. He's looked at the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's daily routine, and he sees that the Prophet slept for 4.5 hours a night in 2 chunks. And for us moderns, the closest we can get to that by force is in Ramadan. And Ramadan destroys all of us. Our sleeping patterns are completely off, even after a month. So, what's your advice on this?
Yeah. So I wanna precurse that notion that sometimes we tend to do this. We look at one aspect of prophetic routine and say, well, how can I apply this part? Without recognizing the holistic nature of the Prophet ﷺ and his whole lifestyle, right? If you were, again, people say, oh, for example, people say, no, well, the Prophet did not exercise. He didn't go to the gym and exercise. I'm like, yeah, but he had a different lifestyle compared to ours. We were like, he was out and about every day versus us sitting on catwalk. I have a debate with Ibrahim about sitting and standing, but sitting every single day for hours, right? And that really impacts your performance. So I would say don't take his routine on a piece by piece, like, okay, I want to focus on the sleep part or on the food part or on this part. It's a holistic approach. Now, I'm not saying you need to go live in a desert and live the lifestyle, but just to recognize that pattern of this is called a fitra lifestyle, and how modern life has really affected fitra life. Still simple things like sleeping right after Isha, right? We don't do that. Simple things like how many meals you ate in a day, usually like 1 or 2 maybe. That also has impacts on sleep. Things like, for example, being in tune with nature and seasonality of things, summer and winter. Again, we don't have that. So just being conscious of that. That's the first thing. The second thing, again, I refer back to this hadith of Aisha anha, that talks about that he did not, yes, usually used to wake up at the middle of the night and pray, but it was not a fixed thing. In fact, it was very fluid, right? Like I said, sometimes if he was tired, he might sleep a bit more. Sometimes he was more energetic, he might stay up the whole night. So it was not a fixed thing, for example, that like 4.5 hours by the dot, right? And then of course I need to figure, it's more about that his lifestyle is very fluid based on the circumstances. And thirdly, to also remember that he used to take a nap, right? And this is again the one about experiment. He used to take a nap. And he actually mentioned the hadith says, seek the help of Qiyamul Layl with naps. Again, a lot of us, again, unfortunately with the corporate lifestyle, hopefully it'll change soon, that naps are just like the taboo, even though it's the most basic human, I call it human right, to be honest, because it is really, if you think across societies, for centuries, nap was just part of people's culture, people's day. But we say it's unproductive, it's lazy, it doesn't fit our modern hustle culture worldview, so it's ignored completely. And yes, if you don't nap, of course, you'll struggle to only sleep on 4.5 hours of sleep, basically. So I think, just like I said, being aware of all those factors. Now, what does that mean for us? Does that mean we should not try to emulate him? What I would say is set the intention and start thinking, what elements of this can I implement in my daily life? For example, can I sleep right after Isha and not stay up night, watch Netflix? Can I get up even for half an hour for Fajr and pray 2 rak'ahs? Can I take a nap? If I can't take a nap during work time, can I take a nap after sunrise? Short nap, for example, just to help me catch up on some of the night sleep. And then kind of like build that capacity. Another thing one of my teachers mentioned to me, which I think very helpful, is that you don't have to do this every single day. Let's say you aim for the weekend. Again, part of your being sort of the moment. So on weekends, I'm going to get up and actually emulate the prophetic routine, for example. So that even if you're being a wreck the rest of the day, at least you're not wrecking your work, for example, until you build a practice. And once you build a practice, it becomes easier and easier over time as well, inshallah.
Yes, thank you for that. Any one else has any questions to ask? You could raise your hands, or you could just shout out your questions if there's any. Okay.
Question Putri.
Yeah. Do you have a workshop on how to use this journal? Good question.
So we're planning to put together a workshop, inshallah, again, just to help people over that learning curve. So we're just waiting for everyone to receive theirs, because we had this launch campaign. And also people are ordering samples at the bookstore as well. So we're hoping that by the end of this month, inshallah ta'ala, everyone should receive the journal, and we have a good critical mass of Barakah Journal users that we can then invite to workshops and trainings and get over that learning curve. But again, I recognize it does require a bit of learning. And I told Ibrahim and others, I feel like the test of this journal is how many people are willing to go that first couple of weeks and then see the benefits, so that it becomes a lifelong habit for them, inshallah. But we definitely get work with that, and I will be posting that on our website, on our blog, as well as on our email newsletter as well, inshallah.
I must say, I mean, this is the perfect time to say it. I mean, if you are not subscribed to the Productive Muslim newsletter, you should. You're missing out because there's a lot of stuff coming in from the team that Mohammed Faris leads, and they are really generous with the resources, with their time, with the teaching. So go to the website, go to the blogs, and there's a lot of stuff. And you need to subscribe to the newsletter because sometimes you need the reminder. So it's good. I recommend everyone should subscribe. Okay. Yeah, we have. Yeah, there's when the Barakah Journal came into the store, a lot of people immediately recognized it. So they knew what it was. So people have been following the Productive Muslim on the journey. And a lot of people have been asking, this is the Barakah Journal is the workbook. Is there rumors of a textbook?
That's still a work in progress. The intention has been set. Let's put it that way. Now in the gardening process. Now whether the fruit will come or not, Allahu A'lam. Yeah. I can't guarantee the fruit, but the intention has been set. I ask for du'as and everyone here, inshallah, to make it easy. To really, it is a project that's been in the works for a while, but I ask Allah to make it easy and to make it a fruit, inshallah.
Yeah, in a way, is a good thing that you did the workbook first or the journal first, because that can feed into the writing and the thing. So what you put in the book is based on practical experiment. So this whole Barakah Journal is an experiment that you were sort of betaing out to the world.
I mean, again, I can't say like this is part of my grand plan. It was not. It was more, I think let's do the journal first. Okay, let's see what happens, right? This is exactly where you set the intention and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make things easier. And you just, it was not part of like some kind of 5-10 year visioning plan, which doesn't work.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. There's a question, how do we subscribe to your newsletters?
I think if you go to, let me put the link here. If you just go to that link, you'll see on the left-hand side, there is inbox thing. Just put your name and email there, inshallah. And there's a question, what's your intention for joining us? So make sure you have your intention ready before you subscribe, because that's part of one of the questions that I ask as you subscribe, inshallah.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. It's coming up to 9:10 here in Singapore. It must be what, 8 a.m. there?
8:10, yeah.
8:10. So
you can see it's getting brighter and brighter in the day outside.
So I don't want to take too much of your day. Thank you for starting your day with us.
I mean, that's barakah. That's barakah by itself. Just
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair.
Just one question about the weather. How is the weather there? I heard it's really, really hot. There's a heat dome over your area.
Oh, subhanAllah, surprisingly, even though we're in Texas, which is considered a very, very hot part of the US, we've had a mild summer here, subhanAllah. Right. And the Northwest and Northeast have been hitting it really hard. So subhanAllah, I mean, it's one of those things you see in life. We had the crazy storm, the Texas snowstorm, which kind of we were out of power for a couple of weeks, but that was something subhanAllah, like in Texas snow that long. But subhanAllah, so everyone is saying climate change is real. we need to start. I feel one of the things, the barakah factor to work on is how to take care of this earth and make it bring the barakah back, because I feel like subhanAllah, we're losing the barakah even of the natural earth,
Right.
and the natural weather climate, subhanAllah. So we need to be more conscious about it, inshallah.
And we start with ourselves. We start with changing ourselves. Inshallah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. As
Absolutely.
always. I look forward to the day when you come to the store again.
Ameen. Oh my God, that's like, honestly, it's my pilgrimage. I really just love the works, the books, the curation. It's unbelievable. But mashallah, jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone who showed up live as well, and for the great questions, very thought-provoking questions. And may Allah put barakah in all your time, in all your efforts, and everything you do, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Alhamdulillah. Have a good morning.
إن شاء الله. جزاك الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام. Alhamdulillah.